I'm Amanda, 32, standing in my family's lavish lakeside mansion on Christmas Eve. The crystal chandelier sparkles above as my father's words echo across the dining table. I'm cutting you out of the will. Everyone freezes, champagne glasses suspended mid-air, all eyes on me. My heart pounds, but my hand remains steady as I raise my glass. What happened next changed everything between us forever. If you're watching from a family with as much drama as mine, hit like and subscribe to join me through this story about finding self-worth after betrayal. Growing up as the daughter of Richard Taylor, CEO of Taylor Estates, one of the largest real estate development companies on the East Coast, meant living a life of privilege that most people only dream about. Our family home was a sprawling mansion in Connecticut, complete with tennis courts, an indoor pool, and enough bedrooms to house a small village. My mother, Elizabeth, was the quintessential socialite and event planner, known for hosting the most exclusive parties in our circle. From an early age, I understood that with great wealth came great expectations. My father had meticulously planned out our lives. He didn't build his empire from nothing just to see it crumble with the next generation. Every decision, from which prep school we attended to which sports we played, was calculated to shape us into worthy heirs. My older brother James was the golden child. 4 years my senior, he excelled at everything my father valued. Captain of the lacrosse team, valedictorian, Harvard Business School graduate. He joined my father's company right after getting his MBA and quickly proved himself as a natural businessman. Their relationship was straightforward. James met expectations, and my father showered him with approval. My relationship with my father was significantly more complicated. While I performed well academically, I never shared his passion for business. The summer internships at Taylor Estates felt suffocating, the board meetings interminable. Instead, I found myself drawn to art, particularly photography. I loved capturing the perfect moment, finding beauty in the details others overlooked. This divergence from the family plan started the fracture in our relationship. "Photography is a hobby, Amanda, not a career," my father said when I told him I wanted to study fine arts in college. "You can take all the pictures you want on weekends after you finish your business degree." But I stood my ground, perhaps the first time I truly defied him. I attended NYU's Tisch School of the Arts instead of Wharton. While he paid for my education, his disappointment was palpable in every interaction we had during those years. After graduation, I built my career slowly but steadily. I started with wedding photography to pay the bills, but my passion was documentary-style street photography and portraits that captured the essence of my subjects. I lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn, far from the luxury I grew up with, but it was mine, earned through my own work. My mother remained my quiet supporter throughout these years. While she never openly contradicted my father, she would call regularly, visit my exhibits when possible, and slip encouraging notes into care packages. "Your father just doesn't understand creative pursuits," she'd say. "He measures success in quarterly reports and property acquisitions. Give him time." But time only seemed to widen the gap between us. Each Christmas, Thanksgiving, and family gathering became an exercise in tolerating thinly veiled criticisms and defending my life choices. The Taylor family Christmas tradition was elaborate and non-negotiable. Everyone gathered at our lakeside estate in Vermont for a week of festivities culminating in a formal Christmas Eve dinner. The guest list included extended family, close friends, and important business associates. It was as much a networking event as a holiday celebration. This year I had reason to hope things might be different. My photography career had finally taken a significant turn. I'd had a solo exhibition at a respected gallery in Manhattan, and the reviews were overwhelmingly positive. A prominent art critic had called my work evocative and masterfully composed, revealing humanity in unexpected places. Sales had been strong, and several important collectors had purchased pieces. For once I felt I had something my father might recognize as success. Maybe not the type of success he had envisioned for me, but undeniable achievement nonetheless. Perhaps this Christmas, I thought I could finally make him proud. The email about my exhibition's success came on a cold November morning. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop in Brooklyn, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls, when my gallery representative called. Amanda, fantastic news. The New York Times art section is running a feature on emerging photographers, and you're one of their highlights. They're specifically mentioning the Wilson Portrait Series. This is huge. My heart swelled with pride as I read the article on my laptop. The critic praised my ability to capture vulnerability and strength simultaneously, and noted that my work showed remarkable maturity and vision. This wasn't just a good review, it was validation of years of hard work and perseverance. My first thought was to call my mother, who answered on the second ring. "Mom, you won't believe it. The Times featured my work. They called it revelatory." "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful." Her voice held genuine excitement. "I always knew you had something special. Have you told your father?" The question dampened my enthusiasm slightly. "Not yet. I thought maybe I'd tell him in person at Christmas. Do you think he'll care?" There was a brief pause before she answered. "I think the timing might be good, actually. He's been reflective lately, talking about the future and legacy. I've noticed him looking at those family albums more often." "Really?" I couldn't hide my surprise. My father wasn't one for sentimentality. "Yes, and he mentioned your exhibition the other day. Asked if I'd seen it." This information gave me hope. Perhaps after all these years, my father was finally ready to see me for who I was, not who he wanted me to be. With this newfound optimism, I decided to find the perfect Christmas gift for him. Something that would bridge our worlds. After weeks of consideration, I commissioned a special piece, a family portrait based on an old photograph, but rendered in my artistic style. It showed the four of us at the lake house when James and I were teenagers, one of the rare moments when everyone seemed genuinely happy. I worked with a master printer to create a museum-quality print, then selected a handcrafted frame that complemented our home's aesthetic. 2 weeks before Christmas, I met James and his wife Sophia for lunch in Manhattan. James had married Sophia 3 years ago, a strategic union with the daughter of another real estate magnate that expanded both families' influence. To my surprise, they seemed to have developed genuine affection for each other over time. "So, little sister, ready for the annual Christmas Inquisition?" James asked, as we settled into our booth at an upscale restaurant near his office. "Actually, I'm feeling good about it this year. My work's finally getting recognized. Maybe Dad will see I wasn't just wasting my time." James and Sophia exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. What was that?" I asked. Sophia leaned forward. "It's probably nothing, but there's been some tension at the office lately. Your father's been in a lot of closed-door meetings, and there are rumors about restructuring." "Is the company in trouble?" This would be shocking news. Taylor Estates had weathered every real estate downturn of the past 3 decades. "No, nothing like that," James assured me. "But Dad's not getting any younger. There's talk he might be preparing to step back, planning succession. And let me guess, you're the crown prince." I tried to keep the bitterness from my voice. James had always been the heir apparent. "Nothing's official," James said quickly. "But yes, there have been conversations. I just wanted you to know before Christmas in case it comes up." I nodded, processing this information. If my father was indeed planning retirement, it might explain his reflectiveness that Mom had mentioned. Perhaps he was taking stock of his life and relationships. The drive to Vermont took longer than expected due to a snowstorm. As I navigated the winding roads leading to our estate, the familiar mixture of nostalgia and anxiety settled in my stomach. The property looked like something from a Christmas card, with snow-laden pines lining the driveway and tasteful white lights illuminating the facade of the grand house. The staff greeted me warmly as I arrived, taking my luggage and the carefully wrapped gift for my father. My mother rushed down the grand staircase to embrace me. "Amanda, you made it. We were getting worried with the storm. Just had to take it slow on the roads," I said, returning her hug. "Your father's in his study with some colleagues. Year-end business, you know how it is. Go freshen up, and we'll have drinks in the living room before dinner." I nodded, noticing she seemed slightly tense despite her warm welcome. As I headed to my childhood bedroom, now converted into an elegant guest suite, I passed my father's study. The door was ajar, and I could hear his authoritative voice discussing something about transition plans and board approval. I paused, considering whether to knock and say hello, but decided against interrupting what sounded like an important meeting. That evening, when my father finally emerged for pre-dinner drinks, his greeting was perfunctory at best. "Amanda, glad you made it safely." A brief nod, no hug before he turned his attention to James and began discussing a new commercial development project. I tried not to let it bother me. This was typical. Things would be different once I shared my news and gave him the gift. I just needed to be patient. Christmas Eve arrived with all its traditional Taylor family fanfare. The mansion was transformed into a winter wonderland with garlands of evergreen draped across the banisters, arrangements of white roses and red berries adorning every surface, and the massive 12-foot noble fir in the great room, decorated with antique ornaments collected over generations. The air was filled with the scent of cinnamon pine and the rich aroma of the feast being prepared in the kitchen. By 6 o'clock, guests began arriving in their holiday finest. Women in elegant cocktail dresses and statement jewelry, men in tailored suits with festive ties or pocket squares. My Aunt Catherine, my mother's sister, arrived early with her husband Thomas. Catherine had always been my ally, the free spirit of the family who had pursued a career in publishing before starting her own literary agency. "Amanda, darling," she embraced me warmly. "You look stunning. I saw your exhibition last month. Absolutely brilliant work. You've really found your voice." "Thanks, Aunt Catherine. That means a lot." "Is your father still being stubborn about your career choice?" she asked in a hushed tone. "Some things never change, but I'm hoping tonight might be different. I've got good news to share." She squeezed my arm encouragingly. "Well, I'll be cheering you on." I wore a simple but elegant black dress that I'd saved for months to purchase, paired with the pearl earrings my grandmother had left me. I wanted to look successful and confident, like someone who belonged in this world, even if I'd chosen a different path. As more guests arrived, my father held court near the fireplace, deep in conversation with 2 board members from Taylor Estates and a prominent local politician. He didn't seem to notice when I placed my gift for him under the tree, adding it to the impressive collection of beautifully wrapped packages. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, where the table had been extended to accommodate 30 guests. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, reflecting tiny rainbows across the hand-embroidered tablecloth. Name cards in calligraphy directed everyone to their assigned seats. I was placed between my cousin Michael and one of my father's younger associates, far from the head of the table, where my father sat with my mother on one side and James on the other. The first several courses proceeded with the usual mixture of business talk, polite inquiries about each other's families, and discussions of vacation properties. I tried to engage with those around me, asking Michael about his law practice and chatting with my mother's friends about their charity work. But I couldn't help noticing how my father would direct questions about the company to James, ignoring my presence almost entirely. Aunt Catherine, seated across from me, tried to redirect the conversation a few times. "Richard, did you know Amanda's work was featured in the New York Times? Such a prestigious recognition." My father merely nodded. "Yes, Elizabeth mentioned something about that." No congratulations. No questions about the feature or my exhibition. Just acknowledgement of having heard the information. Between the main course and dessert, the staff circulated refilling wine glasses. The conversation had turned to politics and the economy when my father stood tapping his glass gently with a spoon. The room quieted immediately. "Before we move to the living room for presents and dessert, I'd like to take this opportunity to share some news." His voice carried easily across the table, commanding attention as it always did. "As some of you already know, I've been considering the future of Taylor Estates. After 40 years at the helm, I've decided it's time to announce my transition plan. While I won't be stepping down immediately, I'll be gradually transferring operational control over the next 18 months. Murmurs of surprise and interest circulated around the table. My mother smiled tightly, clearly already aware of this announcement. James has proven himself more than capable of taking the company forward. He's demonstrated the vision, determination, and business acumen needed to expand what we've built. Effective January 1st, he'll be taking on the role of Chief Operating Officer with the expectation of assuming the CEO position when I fully retire. Applause broke out as James nodded graciously. Sophia beamed beside him, placing her hand over his. Additionally, my father continued once the applause died down, I've been working with my legal team to update our family trust and my will to reflect these changes. The bulk of my shares in Taylor Estates will transfer to James upon my retirement, ensuring clear leadership and continuity. He paused, his gaze sweeping the table before landing for the first time that evening directly on me. Something in his expression made my stomach tighten. As for Amanda, he said, his voice noticeably cooler. While I've always supported her education and provided for her, I've come to the conclusion that continuing to include her in the business succession would be inappropriate, given her clear lack of interest and commitment to our family legacy. The room grew unnaturally still. Even the staff froze in place, uncertain whether to continue serving or retreat. Therefore, I've made the decision to remove Amanda from the main inheritance structure. She'll receive a modest trust that will support her, but she will not be inheriting any stake in Taylor Estates or the primary family assets. I felt as though all the air had been sucked from the room. Blood rushed in my ears as I struggled to process what I was hearing. Had my father just publicly disinherited me at Christmas dinner in front of family friends and business associates? I believe this is the responsible choice given Amanda's preference for pursuing her hobbies, rather than contributing to the family business. This way the company assets remain undiluted and in capable hands while Amanda can continue her artistic endeavors without the burden of corporate responsibilities. He said, artistic endeavors, as one might say, childish fantasies, with barely disguised contempt. My mother's face had drained of color. Richard, I don't think this is the appropriate— It's decided, Elizabeth, he cut her off firmly. The paperwork is already being processed. James looked genuinely shocked, his eyes darting between our father and me. Dad, we never discussed this part of the plan. My father ignored him and raised his glass. To the future of Taylor Estates, secure in the hands of those committed to its success. The toast hung in the air, most guests too uncomfortable to raise their glasses immediately. Aunt Catherine's face was a mask of barely contained fury. Several guests studied their plates intently while others exchanged awkward glances. And there I sat, publicly humiliated, my worth assessed and found wanting by the man who was supposed to love me unconditionally. Years of seeking approval, of hoping he might eventually see value in my chosen path, collapsed into this single devastating moment of rejection. In that moment, every childhood disappointment, every dismissive comment, every comparison to James crystallized into a sharp, clarifying pain. This wasn't about the money. It was about being deemed unworthy, undeserving. A disappointment so profound that my own father would rather announce it publicly than speak to me privately. The silence that followed my father's announcement stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. My cheeks burned with humiliation, as 30 pairs of eyes shifted between my father's impassive face and my shocked expression. The weight of collective pity and morbid curiosity pressed down on me, making it difficult to breathe. In that suspended moment, a kaleidoscope of memories flooded through me. I remembered being 8 years old, proudly showing my father a drawing I'd made only to have him glance at it dismissively before returning to his newspaper. At 12, winning a school photography contest, but receiving only a distracted, "That's nice," when I called to tell him. The graduation from NYU that he attended out of obligation, his congratulations perfunctory, while he lavished praise on a business school friend's son who'd been hired by Goldman Sachs. Every attempt I'd ever made to earn his approval, every compromise, every hope that someday he might see me for who I was rather than who I wasn't, all of it shattered under the weight of his public rejection. My mother's hand trembled as she set down her wine glass. Richard, this is neither the time nor the place for such announcements. We should discuss family matters privately. There's nothing to discuss, my father replied curtly. The decision has been made. I'm simply informing everyone of the new arrangements. James leaned forward, his expression troubled. "Dad, I had no idea you were planning this. I thought we were going to talk about Amanda's role in the foundation or the property management division." My father waved his hand dismissively. "Your sister has made her priorities clear. She chose her photography over the family business years ago." Aunt Catherine's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "For God's sake, Richard. She chose to pursue her talent and passion. That's hardly a crime deserving of public humiliation." "I don't expect you to understand business decisions, Catherine," my father replied coldly. The Johnsons, longtime friends of my parents, exchanged uncomfortable glances before Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should move to the living room for coffee." "Excellent suggestion," my mother said quickly, desperate to diffuse the situation. But no one moved. All eyes remained fixed on me, waiting for my reaction. Would I cry storm out? Create a scene to match my father's dramatic announcement? I felt a strange calm descend over me, a clarity born from the complete destruction of hope. There would be no reconciliation, no moment of paternal pride or acceptance. The fantasy I'd nurtured for years evaporated, leaving behind an unexpected sense of freedom. With deliberate slowness, I reached for my wine glass. My hand, surprisingly steady, raised it toward the chandelier, the ruby liquid catching the light. The room held its collective breath. "To clarity," I said, my voice quiet but unwavering, "and to finally understanding where I stand." I took a small sip, then set the glass down carefully. Years of suppressed emotions threatened to burst forth, but I wouldn't give my father the satisfaction of seeing me break. "Amanda," my mother began, her voice pleading. I held up my hand gently to stop her. "It's okay, Mom. Actually, this is perfect timing." I stood smoothing my dress with one hand. All those years of family dinners had trained me well in the art of maintaining composure under pressure. I wouldn't lose it now, not when I finally saw the situation with perfect clarity. "Dad, thank you for making your feelings so abundantly clear. All these years I've been hoping for your approval, working to prove that my path had value too. I see now that was never going to happen." My father's expression remained impassive, but a muscle twitched near his jaw. "I came here tonight, excited to share that my photography career has actually taken off. The New York Times feature was just the beginning. I've been offered a contract with National Geographic for a 6-month documentary project. They specifically sought me out because of my exhibition." A murmur ran through the guests. National Geographic was a name even my father's business associates recognized and respected. But I realize now that no achievement of mine would ever be enough unless it fit your narrowly defined version of success. So keep your money, Dad. Keep your shares and your trust funds. I've built something of my own, something I'm proud of." I walked to the Christmas tree and retrieved the carefully wrapped package I'd placed there earlier. Returning to the table, I set it in front of my father. "I spent weeks creating this for you. It's a family portrait from the summer at the lake the year before I left for college. One of the last times we all seemed happy together." I unwrapped it myself, revealing the artfully rendered photograph. The image showed the 4 of us on the dock laughing in the golden late afternoon light. I'd enhanced certain elements while softening others, creating an almost painterly quality that highlighted the connection between us that had once existed. I thought it might help you remember that before I was a disappointment, I was your daughter. Before you saw me as a failed business investment, I was just a girl who wanted her father's love. The dining room remained silent as guests took in the stunning image and the weight of my words. My father's face remained unreadable, though he couldn't seem to look away from the photograph. "I won't be staying for dessert. Merry Christmas, everyone." I turned and walked steadily toward the exit, head held high despite the tears threatening to spill over. Behind me, chairs scraped as several people stood, including my mother and Aunt Catherine. "Amanda, wait," James called after me. But I continued walking through the grand foyer with its sweeping staircase and out into the cold December night where snow had begun to fall again, covering everything in a blanket of pristine white. The snowflakes caught in my hair and eyelashes as I made my way to my car, the cold air stinging my heated cheeks. My composure, maintained so carefully through my exit, threatened to crumble with each step. I fumbled with my keys, hands finally betraying the tremors that emotion had triggered. Before I could open the door, I heard rapid footsteps crunching through the snow behind me. "Amanda, stop. Please." It was James, his suit jacket hastily thrown on, no coat to protect him from the biting cold. "I can't go back in there, James." "I'm not asking you to." He reached me slightly out of breath. I had no idea he was going to do that. None. "I swear to you." I believed him. Despite our differences and the natural competition our father had fostered between us, James had never been cruel. Privileged, and sometimes oblivious to his advantages. Yes, but not deliberately hurtful. "It doesn't matter if you knew," I said, my voice quavering slightly. "It's been building to this for years. I just didn't want to see it." "It's wrong what he did in there. Totally wrong. I'm going to talk to him." I shook my head. "Don't bother. He won't change his mind. He never does." "This isn't about the money, is it?" James asked quietly. "No." Tears spilled over, finally freezing almost immediately on my cheeks. "It's about him making it abundantly clear that I will never be enough. That who I am, what I love, what I've built with my life, has no value to him." James wrapped his arms around me, an awkward but genuine attempt at comfort. "Your work is incredible, Amanda. I've always thought so, even if I didn't say it enough. And that National Geographic contract, that's amazing." "Thanks," I whispered, allowing myself to accept his embrace briefly before pulling away. "I need to go. I can't stay here tonight." "Where will you go? The roads are getting worse." "I'll find a hotel in Burlington. I'll be fine." I opened my car door, the interior light illuminating our faces in the darkness. "Call me when you get there safely," James insisted. "And Amanda, this isn't over. Dad doesn't get to just decide things like this without pushback." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further. As I started the engine, I saw my mother and Aunt Catherine standing at the front entrance, watching with worried expressions. I raised my hand in a small wave before pulling away, the grand house with its cheerful Christmas lights receding in my rearview mirror. The drive to Burlington was treacherous. Snow continued to fall heavily, reducing visibility and forcing me to drive well below the speed limit. The isolation of the car provided the privacy I needed to finally release the emotions I'd held in check. I cried until my throat hurt, occasionally having to pull over when tears blurred my vision too severely to continue safely. By the time I reached the outskirts of Burlington, I'd moved beyond tears to a hollow numbness. I found a decent hotel with vacancy checked in with mechanical efficiency and collapsed onto the anonymous comfort of the hotel bed, still in my black dress. My phone buzzed with messages and missed calls. James confirming I'd arrived safely. My mother apologizing profusely. Aunt Catherine expressing her outrage at my father's behavior. I responded only to James with a brief text confirming my safe arrival, then turned my phone off. Sleep evaded me as I stared at the ceiling, replaying the evening's events and wondering how I could have been so naive. Dawn found me still awake, watching the snow continue to fall outside my window, transforming the parking lot into a featureless white expanse. Christmas morning. Across America, families were gathering around trees, exchanging gifts, sharing meals. The Taylor household would maintain appearances, of course. Presents would be opened, mimosas served, with breakfast staff discreetly directed to remove my place setting from the table. I showered and changed into the casual clothes I'd packed in my overnight bag, then reluctantly turned my phone back on. 27 new messages. I scrolled through them quickly, pausing only when I saw one from Sophia, my brother's wife. "James confronted your father after you left. Biggest fight I've ever seen between them. Your mother is devastated. Your father went to his study and hasn't come out. Call when you can." This was unexpected. James rarely challenged our father directly. Their relationship had always been one of aligned interests and mutual respect. For him to risk that over my treatment suggested a deeper loyalty than I'd given him credit for. Around noon, my mother called again. This time I answered. "Amanda, thank God. Are you all right? Where are you?" "I'm fine, Mom. At a hotel in Burlington. What your father did was inexcusable. I had no idea he was planning to make that announcement last night. We'd discussed adjusting the estate planning, but I never imagined he would handle it so publicly. It's done now, I said flatly. No, it's not. Nothing is finalized. There's something you don't know, something that might explain, though not excuse, your father's behavior. My interest was reluctantly piqued. What? I can't discuss it over the phone. Can we meet somewhere, just you and me? Part of me wanted to refuse to drive straight back to New York and leave the Taylors and their drama behind, but curiosity and the lingering attachment of a lifetime won out. There's a coffee shop on Church Street called Muddy Waters. I can meet you there at 2. I'll be there. Thank you, sweetheart. The coffee shop was busy with holiday tourists, but we found a small table in the back corner. My mother looked exhausted, the careful makeup not quite concealing the dark circles under her eyes. I'm not coming back to the house, I said immediately as she sat down. I understand. I wouldn't expect you to after what happened. She wrapped her hands around her mug as if seeking warmth. Your father is not well, Amanda. I blinked, uncertain I'd heard correctly. What do you mean, not well? He's been seeing specialists for months. Memory issues, cognitive changes. He didn't want anyone to know, especially not business associates who might question his leadership. The doctors suspect early-onset Alzheimer's, though they're still running tests. The information hit me like a physical blow. My father, with his razor-sharp mind and commanding presence, facing cognitive decline. It seemed impossible. That doesn't excuse what he did. I said, though some of the anger had drained from my voice. No, it doesn't, my mother agreed. But it might help explain the increasing rigidity, the fear of change, the need to control everything and everyone around him. He's terrified, Amanda. Terrified of losing his identity, his legacy. I sat back processing this revelation. Does James know? Yes, your father told him a few weeks ago when they began serious succession planning. James was supposed to ease into leadership gradually, but your father's condition has accelerated the timeline. And the will changes, the public humiliation. My mother shook her head sadly. Completely inappropriate and cruel. I think he's trying to put everything in what he sees as perfect order while he still can. In his mind, the company is his true legacy, and James is its natural steward. Your choice to follow a different path doesn't compute in his ordered world. So he throws me away, I said bitterly. He's not thinking clearly. After you left, James confronted him harshly. I've never seen your brother so angry. He told your father that if Amanda was out, he wanted out too, that he wouldn't be part of a company that treated family this way. This was shocking. James had worked his entire life to please our father and earn his place at Taylor Estates. What did Dad say? He didn't say anything at first, just stared at James like he couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. Then he locked himself in his study for hours. When he finally came out this morning, he seemed subdued, asked where you were, wanted to know if you were safe. I felt conflicted emotions swirling through me, anger at the public rejection, pity for a man facing a devastating diagnosis, surprise at James's defense, uncertainty about what any of it meant for our family moving forward. I need time, Mom. I can't just come back and pretend everything's fine because he's sick. I'm not asking you to. I just thought you deserved to know the full picture. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so proud of you, Amanda. Your exhibition was brilliant. And National Geographic, that's extraordinary. Her sincere pride brought fresh tears to my eyes. Thanks, Mom. Take all the time you need. But please don't cut us all out of your life. Your father made a terrible mistake, but he's still your father, and the rest of us love you exactly as you are. I nodded, unable to make promises, but unwilling to sever ties completely. We parted with a long embrace, my mother slipping back into her role as family diplomat, trying to hold together the fragments of our fractured relationships. I extended my hotel stay through the week, needing the neutral territory to process everything. James called daily with updates. Our father had apparently retreated into uncharacteristic silence, neither defending nor apologizing for his Christmas Eve announcement. The guests had all departed early, the festive atmosphere irreparably damaged. On New Year's Eve, as I prepared to drive back to New York, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. When I answered, I was surprised to hear my father's assistant, Margaret. "Amanda, I'm calling on behalf of your father. He would like to see you before you return to the city. He's asked if you would come to his office in Burlington tomorrow morning at 10. My immediate instinct was to refuse. What could he possibly say that would undo the damage? "Please," Margaret added, her voice softening. "I've worked for your father for 20 years. I've never seen him like this." Curiosity won out over caution. "Fine, 10 o'clock. Taylor Estates' Burlington office occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek downtown building. I'd been there countless times growing up, trailing after my father on school holidays, or waiting in reception while he finished just one more call before family dinners. The space had always intimidated me with its marble floors, modern art, and hushed atmosphere of wealth and power. Now, as I stepped off the elevator on New Year's Day, it felt different. The office was eerily quiet, with only essential security staff present for the holiday. Margaret greeted me with a sympathetic smile and led me to my father's corner office, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. "He's been here since 7, she said quietly. Wouldn't let me cancel any of his appointments for next week, despite doctor's orders to reduce stress. She knocked gently on the heavy wooden door before opening it. "Mr. Taylor, Amanda is here." My father sat behind his massive desk, looking somehow smaller than I remembered. The morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows highlighted the increased silver in his hair, the deeper lines around his eyes. He looked up as I entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you, Margaret. No calls for the next hour, please." Margaret nodded and withdrew, closing the door behind her. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I remained standing, unwilling to take a seat without invitation, unwilling to show the deference I'd automatically given him throughout my life. Finally, he spoke. "You look well." "I'm fine," I replied neutrally. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please sit." I hesitated, then complied, perching on the edge of the seat, ready to leave at any moment. My father rubbed his temples, a gesture I'd rarely seen from him. "I've spent the past week trying to determine how to begin this conversation. You could start with an apology," I suggested, unable to keep the edge from my voice. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Yes, that would be appropriate. I am sorry, Amanda. My behavior at Christmas Eve dinner was inexcusable." The directness of his apology caught me off guard. Richard Taylor rarely admitted wrongdoing. "I presume Mother told you about my condition?" he continued. "She did. I'm sorry about the diagnosis, but it doesn't justify what you did." "No, it doesn't." He looked down at his hands, then back up at me with unusual vulnerability in his eyes. "The truth is, my condition may have affected my judgment about how to handle the situation, but the feelings behind it have been building for years." "The feeling that I'm a disappointment?" I asked bluntly. "The feeling that I failed you," he countered, surprising me again. "What?" My father stood and walked to the window, looking out over the snow-covered cityscape. "I built all of this with a very specific vision. Create something lasting. Something that would outlive me. Something I could pass on to my children who would carry it forward, expanding and improving what I began." He turned back to face me. "When you rejected that path, I took it as a personal rejection. As if you were saying my life's work wasn't good enough for you." "That was never what I meant," I said quietly. "I just needed to follow my own passion." "I know that now. Or rather, I'm beginning to understand it." He returned to his desk and opened a drawer, removing a folded newspaper page. "I saw this in the New York Times. Your exhibition review." He smoothed the paper on his desk. "The critic called your work a testament to the power of seeing beyond surfaces, of finding humanity in unexpected places. He said your portraits reveal character with unflinching honesty while maintaining profound respect for the subject." I was stunned that he had not only read the review, but remembered it verbatim. "I didn't understand," he continued. How could taking pictures be as meaningful as building something tangible, something that creates jobs and changes skylines? They're different kinds of value, Dad. Different legacies. He nodded slowly. After everyone left on Christmas, after James confronted me about my treatment of you, I couldn't sleep. I found myself in my study looking at that family portrait you'd created. Really looking at it. His voice grew softer. You captured something in that image that I'd forgotten existed. A moment when business and success and appearances didn't matter. When we were just happy. Together. My throat tightened with unexpected emotion. The next day, I went to the gallery that hosted your exhibition. They had a few pieces still on display. I stood there for 2 hours, Amanda, looking at your work, seeing what you see, understanding perhaps for the first time what you've built. He met my gaze directly. It's different from what I built, but no less valuable, no less a legacy. Tears welled in my eyes. Why couldn't you have seen that years ago? Pride, stubbornness, fear. He sighed heavily. And now, ironically, as my mind begins to betray me, I finally see more clearly than I have in years. What happens now? I asked, uncertain where this left us. Now I make things right. I've already instructed the lawyers to reverse the changes to the will. But more importantly, I want to try to rebuild our relationship in whatever time I have left with full cognitive function. I don't know if that's possible after everything that's happened, I admitted. I understand. I'm not asking for immediate forgiveness. Just an opportunity. Perhaps we start with you telling me about this National Geographic project. I'd like to hear about it. Really hear about it this time. It was a small olive branch, but a genuine one. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, my father was showing interest in my work, my world. It's a 6-month documentary project on changing urban communities. I found myself explaining, focusing on the human stories behind gentrification and neighborhood evolution. He listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that suggested genuine engagement rather than perfunctory interest. As our conversation continued, some of the tension between us gradually eased, replaced by cautious possibility. When our time was up, my father walked me to the elevator. Before the doors opened, he turned to me with uncharacteristic hesitation. Would you consider joining us for dinner next week? Just family. No announcements, no business associates, just a meal together. I considered his request. I'll think about it. He nodded, accepting this non-commitment as fair. That's all I can ask. As the elevator doors closed between us, I realized that while Christmas Eve had irrevocably changed our relationship, perhaps that change wasn't entirely for the worse. The fantasy of my father's perfect approval had been shattered, but in its place might grow something more authentic. A relationship based on who we actually were, not who we wished the other to be. Over the following months, I threw myself into the National Geographic project, traveling to cities across America to document communities in transition. My father and I established a tentative new pattern of communication. Weekly phone calls, occasional dinners when I was back in New York. Small steps toward understanding. His condition progressed, though more slowly than initially feared. Good days and bad days. On the good days, he would ask about my latest shoots, sometimes offering surprisingly insightful observations about the images I shared. On bad days, he retreated into the familiar territory of business discussions with James, the world he knew best. James and I developed a closer relationship, as well united in navigating our father's illness and the future of the family. He made it clear that regardless of our father's decisions, he considered me an equal part of the Taylor legacy. The company might be my domain, he told me over dinner one evening, but the foundation needs a creative director, someone with vision and artistic sensibility, if you're interested. It was an elegant solution, a way to remain connected to the family enterprise while honoring my own path. I agreed to consider it once my National Geographic contract concluded. By the following Christmas, much had changed. My father's cognitive abilities had declined further, though he remained physically robust. The family gathered again at the lakeside estate, but with a different atmosphere. More genuine, less performative. No business associates, just family. After dinner, in a moment of clarity, my father asked to speak to everyone gathered in the living room. My stomach tightened with déjà vu until I saw the warmth in his eyes. Last Christmas, I made a terrible mistake. He began, his voice less commanding than before, but still carrying authority. I tried to dictate the value of different paths, different dreams. I publicly rejected my daughter because she chose to build something I didn't understand. He looked directly at me. I was wrong. Amanda, your vision, your art, your way of seeing the world is a gift. A different kind of legacy than the one I imagined, but no less meaningful. I am proud of you. I should have said that years ago. The public apology, in the same setting where he had delivered his painful rejection a year earlier, felt like the closing of a circle. Not erasing what had happened, but acknowledging it and offering a new beginning. Later that evening, as we sat by the fire, my mother handed out hot chocolate in the special Christmas mugs we'd used since childhood. The simple tradition felt both nostalgic and new, infused with greater appreciation after the fractures we'd experienced. My journey from that devastating Christmas Eve to this moment of tentative healing taught me lessons I never expected to learn. About the courage to stand firm in your own worth, even when those you love fail to see it. About the possibility of rebuilding relationships not on fantasy or obligation, but on mutual respect and acceptance of differences. About finding freedom in the release of expectations that were never yours to fulfill. The path forward wouldn't be perfect. My father's condition would continue to progress. Old patterns and hurts wouldn't disappear overnight. But something fundamental had shifted. I no longer sought his approval as validation of my worth, and he, in his late-life wisdom, had finally learned to see value beyond his narrow definition of success. That Christmas Eve, when my father announced he was cutting me from the will, when I raised my glass with steady hands and chose dignity over drama, became the unexpected catalyst for genuine connection. Sometimes it takes the complete collapse of illusion before truth can finally emerge. If your family has ever misunderstood your path or failed to see your worth, I hope you know that standing in your truth is always the right choice, even when it's the hardest one. Your value isn't determined by others' ability to recognize it, and sometimes the people who hurt you most deeply can still find their way to understanding if given time and opportunity. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family expectations? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their path has value, even when others don't see it yet. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that the most important recognition is the one you give yourself.